channel. I know it's been a while, but this video is going to be super important to all of you neuro aspirants and anyone else on the USMLE journey, because this IMG matched into an Ivy League program, and we discuss every aspect of her journey. So even if you're not a neuro applicant, this is going to be super useful. So without further ado, let's get to the video. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. So today I have a really important guest with me. She's my senior from college, and this year she matched into a super prestigious program for neurology. Please welcome Dr. Nishal Kothari. Nishal and I have been friends throughout MBBS, and she has mentored me, guided me so much in my USMLE journey. So if I'm going to I'll be doing a lot of these interviews soon, but I think she should be the first one because she's achieved so much in her prep and in her journey, and she's helped everybody else so much along the way. So I think she'd be a great resource and a mentor for all of you guys too. So welcome, Nichelle. It would be great if you could give us an introduction for yourself and which specialty you matched into and where.
I think that introduction was like set the bar too high. I'm a really normal person, guys. So I'm Nishal Kothari.
Not true.
I went to med school in Jawaharlal Nehru Medical College, same as Sahana and Belgaum. My hometown's Bangalore, and both of us are from Bangalore. And I matched into neurology at Dartmouth in New Hampshire. Absolutely just spectacular program, and I feel super honored every single day that I match there. And that's about it. And I think we can go. I would love to just help anyone out along the way, whoever are future neuro applicants. I might not be able to help everyone, but I will try my best to help everyone, as many people as I can out.
That's great. So I want to ask you, Nishal, when did you start your USMLE journey? Like, when did you know you wanted to do USMLE, and when did you start the preparation for USMLE?
For sure. So I knew very early on. I think during our college time, we would have people from Captain come in and tell us about USMLE. So I think that kind of instigated my liking for USMLE. I knew it was a really hard journey, but I thought it was pretty doable at the same time if you gave it your all. So I think second year is when my mind was kind of like diverted towards it from NEET PG. And then after that, I think I started working towards it towards the end of like the second half of my internship more actively, because until then, probably the only thing I did was like look at pathoma videos in my second year, but that's about it, nothing else. And I would say, if you ever feel that any time is too late, don't feel that, because one of my dad's colleagues actually did go to the US, like did all of USMLE after like doing cardiology in like AIMS and, working there. He just decided he wanted something different. So, no time is too late. So, if you're anxious about that, I would say at least the second half of internship would be a good time duration so that you can figure out your electives. That's the only reason I would say it is better if you decide probably by internship would be a good, ideal timeline.
Yeah. So it's like electives are better than observerships because you do get hands-on experience. But I would mostly say if you're applying to a non-surgical specialty, the electives are easier to get because they're more straightforward to apply. Whereas if you're going for externships and observerships, there's a lot of like really long routes you'll have to take to get those things and contacts and people to reach out a lot of people. So if you're a student, your elective application process is simple. Yeah. But because of COVID, I think both of us had difficulties in the entire USCE process. We'll come to that later on, but no time is too late is what both of us are trying to say. But the earlier you start, the more prepared you're going to be.
Yeah, the YOG is a consideration, but it's not like they're only going to reject your application. I mean, at least for neuro, it's not going to they're not going to blatantly reject your application because of YOG in most places, at least. I'm not going to say all program, but they will try to see other things that you've done. So just have a holistic.
So neuro compared to IM, from what you have told me, is more holistic in their analysis of a candidate, which is why this video is really important for all your neurology applicants, because they don't just look at your scores and year of graduation, because IM is so voluminous, they don't have the time to interview everyone for 45 minutes. But neuro, they really look at you as a candidate as a whole. So if you're going into neuro and you're worried you're too late, don't, just show your dedication towards the specialty and you should be good. Coming to neurology, let's discuss about the pros and cons of neurology practice.
first. So the only con I'm going to admit to is that some of the conditions can be really debilitating, and you have to have like a really strong heart to be able to support your patients and help them power through those difficult moments where you have to tell them that we have to try some therapies that might not work, or we can't do much after this. But I still feel like that's also the beauty of neuro, because it's such an evolving field. We have so much to discover still, and that's something that gets me really excited about that field, because there's so much room for innovation. So it has it's both flip sides to a coin. Like, you can see it whichever way. I always look at the positive aspect, that there's so many therapies, so many diseases that you can discover and just make your mark. So I would say
That's
be
so true.
optimistic. Yeah. So it's an evolving field. It's a beautiful field, and you can make the kind of impact that will take people such a long way. Another pro about neuro that I absolutely admire is the fact that the physical examination aspect of it never really goes away. We're still not that diagnostically dependent in neurology, whereas your clinical examination skills is still such an integral and such a vital part of your examination. If I have to compare neuro and IM specialties when it comes to the USMLE per se, is something that I realized during my application time, that the number of programs in neuro are considerably lesser than in IM. Neuro probably has like 100, 120. Not sure about the exact number, but I would put it like 120 programs. But one thing which is really, and they will have lesser number of seats as well. The maximum program that I interviewed with like maximum seats was like 11, which is really a contrast to medicine, where Cleveland Clinic I had had like 60 seats for PGY1. Don't quote me on those numbers, check it out. But also one good thing is the number of applicants are still lesser. So there's a lot of room for holistic evaluation of applications, which does happen. And with your applications, you just need to show your passion for neurology, like be a neuro nerd, because anyone who is a neurologist in the US is thoroughly passionate about their field.
So I think that's a good overview on why you should go and why you shouldn't go into neuro. There are both pros and cons. And like Michelle said, the con is also something, if you're very excited about research and you want to find newer treatments and you're very inclined like that, it might even be a pro for you.
And another thing that I actually wanted to touch up was, I forgot, most of the neuro programs are actually going to be university and university affiliated. So any program that you get into is just absolutely top notch and spectacular, because, they have so many guidelines to adhere to, that all of these programs have a certain degree of standards that, you will not have to worry. Like, if you get into a neuro program, you're good to go. Like, all of these programs are so good for sure. And that's one advantage with neuro. Yeah, lesser programs, but all of the programs are just really good quality.
So you didn't get into this program on without a stellar CV and stellar scores. So let's start with your scores and your step, which is step 1. If you can just let us know in brief the timeline, the resources, and some important information you'd like to give people, which maybe not a lot of people know, and end with your score, that would be great.
Okay, awesome. So I think I roughly took close to like 5+ months, five plus or minus 6 months, I think. Yeah, probably. And I think my resources, I think it's the usual QWorld, Pathoma, First Aid. Everyone knows these resources, but with step 1, I think you have to really try to consolidate the information. So find fun ways to study. That's always something I'm doing.
Yeah.
So like Dirty Medicine was a great resource that I would use, especially for biochem in the night when I was sleeping. Like, those biochem pathways were just it was such a fun way to learn with him. Definitely Sketchy Micro. And if you can do Sketchy Farm, at least for neuro drugs, because I still remember so many of the side effects only because of those diagrams. NBME, the one thing I would say is, especially the newer NBME, is really great concepts that do show up in the exam. So especially in every new NBME, I'll probably pick out like 20 questions, screenshot it, and I had reviewed it like a week before my exam. And that was really helpful, because at least the crux of a lot of the questions on your UWorld will be very similar to your new NBME. So if you're not okay with a few concepts, review them well. I got a 254 on my step 1, and yeah.
That's a big score. And she did get into such a prestigious program because she had good scores, but those weren't the only criteria. So 254 in a step 1 is almost up, it's more than 90 percentile. So all the information she's giving is really important, especially the NBME thing. I think a lot of people don't review their NBMEs, and I think that could really push your score by 5 to 6 points on the last week of your exam. Okay,
100%.
so then next she headed out for her electives. This was peak during second wave of COVID, where every university was shut. It was so difficult to find any sort of elective, observership. It was so hard to get even visa. So Nishal, just let us know how you got your visa, how you got your electives, and a few of your struggles during this process.
For sure. Definitely. So I went, like Sahana said, in the peak COVID time. So sure. Thankfully, I had a visa from before because we had to go for we had to go for something to the US. So my parents helped me get a visa and I just tagged along with them. So that was thankfully like something that worked out in my favor. I went in the peak COVID time. So just before US started banning flights from India. So I just left before that. So it was really difficult for me I contacted a ton of universities, but it was all just met with, okay, the COVID situation's happening, get back to us after some time. So I did agency rotation in New York in an outpatient setting. And it was with a doctor who was a neurologist plus a psychiatrist. So that was a really interesting experience because I got to see how both the specialties were tied together. So that's something that was really nice. The other rotation I did was with FIU in Miami. So that was inpatient plus outpatient. So that was also really, really hands-on. Got to see how the hospital works in the US. So that was obviously a very interesting and exciting experience. Got to learn about the healthcare system. And my third rotation was a tele rotation because I'd flown back to India. And I was really skeptical about tele rotations, but might not the LOR, you're going to be really worried if it holds the same value. Maybe not as much, but at least 75 to 80% of the value it would hold if I had to put it numerically. And I would say that, busting a lot of myths about tele-rotations can also be fun, can also be really a great experience because you get to do so many differential diagnosis and case discussions, discuss a lot of existing trials, new trials ongoing for XYZ disease. So it was really brainstorming a lot, doing a lot of medical reconciliation and things of that nature. So, regardless of the fact that it's a tele-rotation, give it your 100%, try to stand out. And, a lot of universities a lot of programs do understand with COVID that, not everyone can get in person because of visa restrictions or, travel restrictions. So, try to do the best of whatever situations you have, whatever situation you're in terms of financial resources, in terms of visa issues. Try to do the best you can. And any kind of experience on your CV is going to hold weightage.
So I'll just sum it up for you guys watching. So she's saying that if you can get inpatient and observerships or electives, do that, but do not beat yourself up about not getting it if you're not in the financial or you don't have the visa situation to do them. You can always opt for tele rotations and give your best in any of these clinical rotations because what LOR you get will depend on that. If they're really impressed by you and you stand out in a crowd of 20 students, that's going to matter in your LOR. No, you won't get a generic LOR, you get a specific LOR.
When you're working, you're going to kind of get a basic idea if your LOR is going to be generic, are they giving out generic LORs or are they going to be specific LORs? So in the off chance, I would say definitely 90% of the time, an American LOR is going to hold more value. But in the off chance you can't get it, your home experience also will make a ton of difference because you bring a lot of unique experiences that, that people in the US might not have. So, let your LOR, if you're getting from a home country, shine that. Let it be from a person who is kind of well-renowned, prestigious, like a HOD of the neurology department, which was what happened in my case. And, she was able to highlight how hard I'd worked through med school and, how she remembers a couple of my presentations through med school.
Okay, then let's come to the next big exam that you have to give, which is step 2. So Nisha, if you can just walk us through your step 2 timeline, the main resources that you did use, some really helpful tidbits that maybe are not available to other people, and lastly, your score.
Coming to step 2, I think 2 weeks of dedicated and 4 months plus or minus for my prep with electives. So I think I had a unique insight to step two prep because I had to do it with my electives. So I would say number one thing that I did differently was I got a really cool study partner. She was from a different country, but I think we really had a good rapport. And especially discussing algorithms with her really just like ingrained those things in my head. And yeah, definitely would say, especially for discussing algorithms in step two, having a study partner who you have a good momentum with does go a long way, because she could remember answers in the question because of like in my voice, and like it was the same like back and forth for both of us. That was one thing. The second thing is how to plan your day would be when, especially when you're traveling, I would say do probably one of the three things. If you're into listening, divine intervention podcast. If you think they're too long, go for divine interventional notes. You can just read it, scroll through it on your phone, like, you know, those rapid reviews. And third thing, I had my own handwritten notes that I would have a few important tidbits or points in, stuff that I got wrong. And I would just kind of review them and, you know, just flip through them whenever I'm traveling in the subway or something in New York. So that worked in my favor, I think, because, you know, you don't get a lot of time with electives. So you need to be very resourceful.
And what is your score?
Okay. Score is 266.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do want, like, you guys have to remember that despite doing her elective, she did find time to study because that was a priority. And nowadays, step two is being valued more than step one. So you can never disregard scores, because that's the most objective way someone can grade you. We'll go into the depth of step one, step two prep on my channel. Please subscribe. I already have an in-depth step one video with the timeline and all the resources that you need. And I'll go into a step two video very soon. So just watch out for that, with all the information that Nishal has provided, with some of my own tidbits that I have learned along the way, which will help you guys too. So we've wrapped up the examination processes now, and I think there are a lot of resources and videos which are explaining these. You can check my own channel out, but I think the match process is still such an enigma to most people. So Nisha and I will try to break down that process as much as we can for you guys and make it as simple as possible. And also, how do you build your neuro CV and make it the best it can be? So this section is going to be very, very high yield for anybody who's hoping to match and anybody who's wanting to match into neuro. So Nisha, let's start with the ECFMG certification. I know it's very important for IMGs to be certified before they apply. I'll tell you guys why. Because that certification is like an approval that your education was at a valid college, your scores are legitimate, and you can speak English. So without that certificate of approval, unless a program already knows you very well, they're not going to be able to trust what you're saying. So it's like it's a seal of trust that, what you're saying is legit. So that is a very important process, and I'll let Nishal tell you guys how long you should give it and what are the processes that you should start with and what are the documents you need prepared for it.
So 100%, the ECFMG timeline is something that I made sure that we need to touch upon, because it is such a less talked about subject, and I was just shocked to know the kind of paperwork that goes in and the kind of time it requires. So breaking it down, you will need your pathways approved. For your pathways, you will need your OET scores, and you will need a letter of good standing from your state medical council. So remember, OET scores are not as like, you know, really like quick as step one and step two results. So, you know, you have to like leave some time out for your OET results to come. And after which you get your letter of good standing. Pathways, I think at my time, took around close to 2 weeks to get approved. So while I was getting my pathways approved, I was doing my dedicated step two prep. And around the same time, I got my letter of good standing and my step two scores, and I applied for the ECFMG certification. That, for your credentials to be verified by your college, will take close to, I would say, 3 weeks to 4 weeks. I got my certification 2-3 days, I think, before I applied. So cutting it really close. But I would definitely say have 2.5 months in hand to get all your paperwork sorted on time. There's nothing wrong in getting your ECFMG certification late. A lot of my friends did do that. It's just a hassle because you have to email all your programs the ECFMG certificate, and emailing every single program and finding the emails is going to be gruesome, guys. So don't put yourself.
Exactly.
If you
Don't
can,
disapprove.
if you can, I mean, if things don't work out, it's all right.
Yeah.
Don't freak out. There are two ways to everything. But if you can, 90% try to get it, because it's going to be a hassle later.
That's very good. That's really important to know that even if you don't make it, there is still a way for you to get by, but try your best to do within the
sure.
timeline. Do you think step 3 matters before you apply for match?
I personally haven't given step 3. I am preparing for it little by little, but I'm just trying to focus on other things, and I am trying to study, but I'd probably go before residency and give it. So I would say, I mean, it's a really subjective thing. Like, I know for IM, it's super important, but I don't know, like for neuro, it's never been like actively brought up in any of my interviews. Can't really say.
Because most neuro programs do not offer H1B visas.
H1B.
They're all really big university programs which only offer J1 visas. So they don't really care if you finish your step 3 or not before they match. But IM programs do offer H1Bs. So if you're applying to a H1B IM program, they will expect you to have step 3 done.
Yeah.
And one thing now, because step 1 has become pass fail, I would recommend guys to finish step 3 even before you apply, because
100%.
it would just mean that your application is more complete. It's not mandatory. It's just for all of us overachievers who are like, what more can I do? So if you really want to do more, you can do this. I'm just letting
that is Sahana, guys. Just putting it out there. The overachiever.
I remember I called you after my step 1 score being sad. And I called you after all my step scores sad.
Yeah, and I get so super annoyed, guys. I don't even think I want to go into that. I will probably have a mental breakdown just trying to explain to her that she aced it.
So I'll summarize it saying step 3, best given before applying for a match. It's good to give after you apply, before you match. You can give it after you match, but it's not going to make a big difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
If you want to just ease your residency experience and you want to just finish it off because you're fresh off of step 2, then sure, give it after your match, but it's not going to make a difference at all as to what your visa
100%.
situation is or where you match. So after this, let's get to your CV, Nishal. I want to break this down into a couple of subheadings so it's easy for people to follow. So firstly, I'm going to talk about the research experience and how important that is for neuro and if that is important at all. Secondly, let's talk about your personal statement. And third thing is your extracurriculars. So that might be academic or non-academic, but it just doesn't fall under these categories. So could you please let us know about your PS and how long it took you to draft it, and how long should I give or how long should our viewers take to draft and get a completed PS?
So remember with your PS that you're going to go through multiple drafts. So give yourself adequate time, especially if you think that I did not get mine reviewed by an agency. I just did it with friends and family. And I think PS is a very, very personal thing in which it should demonstrate a piece of your personality. So, spend adequate time with it. I would say start jotting down points or just things around which you want to frame your paragraphs. At least know your core points, and you can draft it later. But I gave mine, I think, close to 3 weeks, which is not a lot. But do better than me, guys. At least start 3 months earlier, jotting down ideas. And it all depends also on how proficient you are in, just gathering your thoughts and writing it, putting it on paper. So you guys know yourselves, see what kind of, how long an essay would take you, and, just depend it on that. I would just say it needs to be a piece of you. It needs to be original. It needs to, give them a glimpse of your life in whatever way possible. And if you need to, especially if you're working on a PS that needs to highlight gaps or highlight red flags, find a nicer way to do it and definitely include those in your PS. Yeah. This
Makes
is
sense.
PS. CV
let's go to research.
Research. So I did a meta-analysis with a group of people who were also applying to fellow neurology applicants. And during my time from applying for this match and to the match date, I tried to kind of actively involve in at least a couple of publications so that, I've done something during this period. I also worked. So, kind of just don't show it as a gap. Do things, work actively on building your CV in the off chance you don't match, and no building CV ever goes to waste.
So I just want to let you guys know that like she wasn't the first author, she wasn't the second or even the third author, but she did have her name on the paper. So it wasn't something, it's not something which was an extraordinary study which was impacting people's lives. It's just to show that you were doing and keeping yourself busy and you were working towards something and you have the personality trait to do multiple things, to be involved in multiple things, you have the competency to work with people and publish something. So they're not looking at like for you to like change, neurologies, the whole field of neurology before you come in. So don't put so much pressure on yourself for that.
Yeah. So I would like to highlight a few things when it comes to research. Definitely neuro research is a boon because most of these programs are going to be university. They will really appreciate if you had research. If you don't have it, don't beat yourself up. Even if it's something as simple as a case study, if you can publish, it still shows proactiveness. So it's all about showing proactiveness and, your passion for the field.
So let's go to your CV, which is your extracurriculars. So what do you think that you've done in your life and that you have done which made you stand out among other applicants during your interview season?
For sure. So I absolutely love art. I really love painting. So I was kind of in my tell me about yourself is a really common interview first question. So I would tie in my love for art and my love for neurology somehow in the school statement. So that was always, and I was learning mandala art at that time. So, it was brought up a lot of times in my interviews. My second hobby was I absolutely love traveling. Sahana knows. So
yeah, you were never in college. So I know.
About that. So I brought up I was a certified scuba diver. So, a lot of professors either really enjoyed it or, they wanted to learn it. So, anything and everything under the sun could be discussed. So I think my travels, especially a couple of things like scuba diving and a lot of the adventure sports were always discussed. And they always had these really crazy things to say about it. I think one of the programs, she was the chair of the program and she asked me what I wanted from the program. And I said everything academically and research wise. And then she was like, yeah, we have everything you want, but we don't have scuba diving, we don't have a beach around, but we'll let you fly to Hawaii, don't worry about it. So just really sweet stuff like that. Everyone in neurology is an absolute passionate nerd. So you
just need to learn how to highlight different aspects of your personality. And you need to drive the conversation instead of being driven by the conversation. So you need to direct the interview into areas where you want to talk about and away from areas you don't want to talk about. It's exactly like a viva where you don't want the questions to go into some topic you've never read. So you want to direct them. If you have an interest in scuba diving, then bring it up. So in case they also share the same passions, you'll have something to connect about.
Definitely. And I think I was interviewing at a program in Florida and the associate PD absolutely loves scuba diving and her husband and her were just going back and forth. It was so much fun. I forgot, bro, what I was going to say. Cut it out.
It's okay.
Light. Oh, another thing I wanted to say about...
I'm leaving this in.
No. So one thing important. Another thing I would say is during your med school, try to remember... try to keep a mini diary of things that you've done because you're going to forget when you're crafting your CV at the end of it all. So, just have a mini note of who the preceptors were and, what exactly that, that task entailed. So it should really simplify your process when you're making a CV.
Okay, let's wrap it up. So you guys know everything about Michelle, I hope by now, how she got into neurology and what she did and how her CV is. If there are some things that you wish you'd have done differently had you known better, if you could redo this whole process, if you could do something differently, what would they be?
A couple of things. Probably start working earlier in med school, at least on my CV, if not the exam CV for sure. I wish my profile I did the best I could with COVID, but I would have liked my profile to be a little bit stronger. But I know that I was able to explain and talk my way through all the experiences I had. So,
I'm just sorry, but what do you mean by stronger? I feel like it would be nice to know what would you feel like you lack.
I feel like I wish I had a university elective for research, but I did not have the time and I hadn't applied earlier enough. So guys, especially be proactive on Twitter if you're a neuro applicant. tons of PDs and your professors will be on it. So, just, if you've done something great in neuro, like, organized a marathon for like Parkinson's Awareness Week, or I did a podcast with some of my neuro colleagues. So, it's good to have good colleagues in, the branch that you're applying. I found some great people to, just do things with, and were made to be in terms of research or like the podcast. So that was really good. And when it comes to research projects, you can go to a lot of the university's websites. The people in neurology are really, really receptive. So you can get the research coordinator's, email ID, tell her about your interest, and, especially in the field that you want to go to. Like if I wanted stroke, I would find stroke related like research projects where it's going really, really like interventional stroke, and contact the research coordinators. So, they usually do get back to you. So you can do those things in neuro. Try to be very proactive and contact, like research coordinators, and try to get yourself a research elective. I would definitely recommend it highly. It goes a long way.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think if you get a research elective, especially in neuro, the program gets to know you better and it would help you. Yeah. But research electives are hard to come by. Even if you can just go volunteer and just work with them in just for free for a couple of weeks, it should be good.
For sure.
I think that's wrapping it up. Michelle, thank you so much for coming. I just want to ask you one last thing before you go. I want to know what you're looking forward to in residency. What are you looking forward to doing, studying, inventing, discovering, whatever it is that you're going to be doing?
Oh my God. So I want to definitely go into stroke if it's possible, if everything works out well. I want to kind of work on neuro rehabilitation. That's kind of been my long-term dream. Just use a lot of mirroring technique. Just neurotechnology and neuro rehabilitation would be my forte. Super excited for residency to see what's ahead. And I think just moving out and like living in the US is going to be super challenging, definitely. But I'm truly excited for the challenge.
That's great. I wish you all the best. I'll hopefully join you next year. And
I'm hoping to see you in the US. Like that's definitely
hopefully I'll be there, maybe near you, and we'll meet up.
I'm looking forward to it, Sahana.
Bye.
Well, that's it, guys. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, you know the drill. Like, share, and subscribe. You can head over to my Instagram at Dr. Deva, and I release giveaways and Q&As. I do constantly. I do have a Boards and Beyond referral code, so please look at the referral code in my description box, and you can get 10% off on your Boards and Beyond subscription. And that's pretty much it, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, bye.